So that's why that step number 2 is to unpack standards. And then step three is to prioritize them.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, if you like go to Texas, they have their standards are as big as their state. They have 5. I love my Texas people. When we were talking about essential standards, supporting standards, and additional, that's the academic vocabulary for what we talk about. Now, some states call them priority standards or power standards or readiness standards or promise standards, whatever we call them. In my school, we call them boulders, rocks, and butterflies. And let me tell you why. We could visualize that. If you take your standards and we did it just for one unit in the beginning. If you take your standards for one unit and you're like, what are the big babies? What are the boulders? What are the things like, you have to know this. Like you can't leave this unit and not know this and this. Now, if you have more than 3 big boulders, your unit's too big. So we picked a couple of these are the big babies. We call them boulders. Rocks support boulders. So for example, folktales, fairy tales, myths, and legends, they don't stand alone. I don't care if my adult children can tell me the difference between a folktale, a fairy tale, and myth and a legend. You won't either. None of our readers, like everybody that's listening to this, trust me, you don't care. But you're going to use folktales, fairy tales, myths, and legends for citing textual evidence, author's purpose, reading and comprehending on grade level. Poetry is the same way. I don't care if my adult children can tell me write to 3 types of poetry, but it supports reading and comprehending on grade level, citing textual evidence. So those are those supporting standards. Those are the rocks. They support these big babies. And then you have butterflies. Butterflies just land in me. They're fun. They're pretty. Don't really care if you know it or not. How about this one? Do you know the percentage of salt water to fresh water on the earth?
I would say 70 to 30%.
You know why you don't know?
Why don't I know?
You don't care.
I know there's more. I think there's more salt water than fresh.
Oh, it's crazy. It's like 97 to 3, and the fresh water, like half of that's frozen. And so the whole point of that is we have, John, in this modern world, like, hey, Siri, we have kids memorize things they don't need. Now, are there times kids need to memorize things for automaticity, like math facts, math fluency, like their times tables? Yes. But just in a water cycle unit, for example, having kids memorize as a 10-year-old, the percentage of salt water to fresh water, that's butterfly. How about this one? A career in weather, boulder, rock, or butterfly. Careers in weather.
Career in weather, whether or not one needs to know.
Like all the different kinds of careers in weather. Would that be a boulder, rock, or butterfly?
That would be a rock. I'm failing your test here.
But here's the thing, John. It's whatever your team decides. Just see, when we get back to eliminating the water, it's what your team decides. And here's the other thing, and this is why we're doing this. You can change your mind.
I see.
Because see, in the beginning, my teams wanted to boulder everything. And then it was like, do we really need them to memorize careers in weather? No. You know what? On day 8, let's watch a video on tornado chasers and some other careers in weather. Done. It's butterfly.
But it's interesting you say that, because I think it does change, to your point. If one is teaching, let's say, in a magnet school for career development, and talking about careers in science, then maybe it is a rock.
Then it is a rock.
Conversely, if you're an elementary school teacher and you just want students to start understanding that water cycle process, then maybe it is a butterfly.
Yeah. And so see what I'm saying? You got it. You got it. It's what the team decides, and it's what meets the needs of your students. So for example, my teachers wanted to argue all day long about memorizing the 10 tools of the meteorologist. And you know why they wanted to argue it? There were 3, so this is like 5th grade. There were 3 full lessons in their science book on all the tools of the weather, on the meteorologist. They had to memorize what the tool did, and then they had to take a little test on day 4. Well, I'm thinking, do they really need to? I mean, and then when teachers are like, why would they need to other teacher's like, well, what are we going to do for 3 days if we don't do that? See, so all of this magnifies a lot of things, bubble up when you start really talking about it. And they're like, they don't need to memorize it. Let's make a sheet that has the 10 tools, a picture of it and what it does. Done. 3-hole punch, science binder, you're welcome. So we had to get really, really clear and have some conversations about what was important to us. And that's